So loving yourself and others is very important, but how do you do that? Honestly, the information I'm about to share is so powerful, I'm a little hesitant because it can do as much harm as good. The meaning of life. I think there's three main positions that people fall into where they start to wonder about the meaning of life, and you can see if this applies to you. But the first position is when a person has a lot of options. They don't know what to pick, which direction to go down. So it makes them pause to consider, what do they value? What's important? It can often get you tangled up into an existential crisis, wondering what is meaningful then. I think another position is when you're just coasting. So it's when you're still doing something, but you reach that destination that you were told to get to, and you realize it's not everything you were hoping for. It's not the answer. Maybe you have the nice career, maybe you have the nice house, maybe you have a family and kids, and you finish school, and you basically did everything that your society told you to do, but you just find out you're not where you want to be, and that can lead to an existential crisis. There's also a third option, which is often unfortunate, but it's when you have no options. So you've got no direction, and you don't know where to go, and you feel stuck, and you start to think, why should I go on? Why is this important? What is this all for? Something very important to ask yourself right now is, what do you think the answer to the meaning of life will make you feel? How do you think you'll feel? Do you think that the answer to the meaning of life would bring you peace, happiness, tranquility? I think when most people are looking for a meaning of life, they want it to be satisfactory. They want it to be satisfying. So there's what I think is the answer to the meaning of life, but there's also what I think would be a meaning of life for happiness and peace. So this is what I would tell you in this video. I think a big piece of the puzzle is love. Love yourself, love other people, love your work. If you can do those things, then you'll be pretty happy with life. It's important to remember we're also creatures with built-in needs. Human needs are a little more complex. It's important to accept that you're a human being with needs. Human beings are driven by needs. And when we don't have our needs met, there's typically a pathology that develops. The psychologist Maslow developed a hierarchy of human needs. Things like basic needs, psychological needs, and then self-fulfillment needs. There's physiological needs, food, warmth, rest, security needs, like security and safety. There's social needs like belongingness and love needs. There's social needs, and there's also self-actualization, which is being authentically, truly yourself. Which need dominates our current life depends on our development in the lifespan. What needs we need change as we age. Reflect on what need is missing in your life and work to satisfy it. Abraham Maslow went to study the Blackfoot Native American tribe when he developed his hierarchy of human needs. What Maslow found was that scarcely 10% of Western people were at the self-actualization stage, the pinnacle of meeting needs. With the Blackfoot Native American tribe, over 90% of people were at the self-actualization stage. This partly points to something has gone very wrong with Western society if so many of us are struggling with much more basic needs. While Maslow's hierarchy of needs is useful and interesting to think about, something I like better is Manfred Max Neef's 10 human needs. They're subsistence, protection, understanding, participation, leisure, creativity, identity, freedom, and transcendence. The first 9 are essential, and he says that a pathology will develop if you don't meet your needs. Transcendence is the last stage. Manfred was working with lower income societies and trying to break them out of poverty. So he felt like transcendence was for later societies to develop. But we start to see common threads in what we see as human needs. So again, I think it's important to take a close look at all of these and try to work on them with yourself to see, are you lacking in anything? Do you feel like you're satisfied in most of your needs? And where would you go for transcendence? But beyond meeting human needs, there is the psychological state of flow. A lot of what we're going to be talking about is actually positive psychology, which is the psychology of well-being and happiness. So in positive psychology, a flow state, also known colloquially as being in the zone, is the mental state in which a person performing an activity is fully immersed in a feeling of energized focus, full involvement, and enjoyment in the process of the activity. In essence, flow is characterized by the complete absorption in what one does, and a resulting transformation in one's sense of time. I like Schaefer's proposed 7 flow conditions. So it's knowing what to do, knowing how to do it, knowing how well you are doing, knowing where to go if navigation is involved, high perceived challenges, high perceived skills, and freedom from distractions. You've probably had a sense of flow in your life at some point. There are all kinds of activities which can give a sense of flow. Creating art, playing a musical instrument, video games can cause a sense of flow. They're almost designed to. But what I would really recommend is having at least one movement practice where you can develop a state of flow. Just some way to move your body that makes you embodied. So you're fully absorbed in your own movement. Something that helps you to really deeply connect with your own body. Something that's so interesting about a state of flow is that it gives you a sense of purpose. It says here, experience of the activity as intrinsically rewarding, also referred to as autotelic experience. Telic meaning purposeful, and autotelic meaning within. A state of flow provides intrinsic meaning to the individual. It's a type of information processing that feels purposeful from the inside. I strongly recommend the book The Happiness Hypothesis by Jonathan Haidt. The author compares the findings of modern science with the wisdom of ancient philosophies and cultures. Haidt proposes the equation for happiness as H is equal to S plus C plus V. H is happiness, S is your biological set point, C is your circumstances, and V are the voluntary actions you can take. So it's a basic equation, but it makes you really sit down and think about it. What are the factors that go into happiness? And this idea of a biological set point is really important. So there's this idea of a hedonic treadmill. The hedonic treadmill, also known as hedonic adaptation, is the observed tendency of humans to quickly return to a relatively stable level of happiness despite major positive or negative events or life changes. Hedonic adaptation is a process or mechanism that reduces the effective impact of emotional events. Generally, hedonic adaptation involves a happiness set point, whereby humans generally maintain a constant level of happiness throughout their lives, despite events that occur in their environment. The process of hedonic adaptation is often conceptualized as a treadmill, since one must continually work to maintain a certain level of happiness. So actually, a lot of the things that we think will make us happy will only lead to a fleeting temporary happiness, which we adapt to. Anything you are searching for that will be static and unchanging will eventually not bring you much happiness. We evolved this way because content creatures often become stagnant and don't grow. So it's really important to think about some of those factors, because your happiness is the set point. It's almost like your internal thermostat. It's like when you set an AC to 75 degrees, it's going to heat up or cool down to get you back to that point. And your body is really like that. So something is like if you are buying a house and there's a certain square footage and you feel like, oh, I need a really big house. But after 6 to 9 months, it's not going to mean much to you. It could also be like art and figurines and sometimes that stuff, which again, it's static, it's unchanging. You're going to hang it up and it's going to be there and you appreciate it sometimes, but it's also not going to bring you that much happiness. So if you want to know how to be happy, you should stop and consider how happy you've been. The average of your lifetime happiness is probably about your set point. But I would say, don't despair. If your happiness isn't where you've wanted it to be, don't give up yet. There's more to do. You may not have reached your true biological set point. Your set point is heavily influenced by your health. So I would recommend focusing on posture, breathing, sleep, nutrition, and exercise in that order. Some people focus on exercise as a priority. Attaching yourself to the highest level helps to prioritize the lower levels. When you exercise well, you want to eat and sleep well to support your training. Similarly, we can attach ourselves to meaning and purpose, which orders our actions on the lower level needs. It's kind of like a lasso. You connect yourself to the top rung and try to pull yourself up. Your circumstances influence happiness and your ability to maintain your health. Some environments are toxic or don't support growth. We must make a voluntary action to change to a different set of circumstances as best we can. We mostly need to invest our work and energy into voluntary actions so we can make ourselves as happy as we desire. We must choose to prioritize our health and balance our needs in life. Recognize and accept that happiness is not a destination to reach and rest at, but something to strive for and continually renew. But I hope that you'll grow to accept all of your emotions. There are 5 emotions that are common to nearly all mammals, so across cultures, and it's not even just humans either, but it seems like cats, dogs, cows, they all feel these emotions, which I remember them as emotion fades. It's fear, anger, disgust, enjoyment, and sadness. These emotions are about approach and avoidance. So enjoyment, you'd want to approach. Fear, you'd most likely want to avoid. Something interesting too to explore is the Atlas of Emotions. It's a really cool interactive way just to think about feelings. It might be worth associating activities with your 5 basic emotions, maybe things you do when you feel this way, so that you can hopefully channel that emotion into something positive. I think it's helpful to think of emotions kind of like waves in the ocean, and some of us are standing on the shore and the waves don't even reach us, so we're not feeling very much. And some of us are standing right in the water, and sometimes, those emotions, those waves can really hit us. And for some people, they're much deeper. It's like they're being overwhelmed by the emotions. They're under the current and being tossed around. But it's just important to accept what you're feeling and understand that it's going to pass, and try to feel and explore what you're going through. But of these 5 emotions, it's worth considering how many you would consider positive and how many negative. It seems like 4 out of the 5 are negative. It's just enjoyment that's positive. And many of us will understand that a lot of life is suffering. A small part of life will be absent of suffering. We're working towards self-mastery, which I think self-mastery is about full expression. And there were some useful techniques and guides by the work of the Shaolin master Xing Yi. So there are 5 hindrances to self-mastery. So one is sensual desire by sight, touch, taste, smell, hearing. Am I distracted or addicted? Ill will or aversion. Am I feeling a negative emotion? Dullness or heaviness. Am I unmotivated? Restlessness. Is my mind jumping from thought to thought? And skeptical doubt. Am I indecisive? So these are little tests you can do. There's also HALT, am I hungry, angry, lonely, tired? But what I found most helpful from what he was describing is something called RAIN. So you let experience reign, which is recognize which hindrance you're experiencing, accept what you're experiencing, investigate why you're experiencing the hindrance, and non-identify with the experience. I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am not my emotion. It's worth playing around with these techniques just to see what comes of it. What I found too is that even simply just recognizing what my experience really is, that first step, I wasn't doing it if I was just like living through the moment. It helps you to take a step back and get some cognitive distance to see what you're going through. So hopefully You're meeting your needs, you're starting to get to know yourself, you are learning to express yourself. And some people say that meaning is a privilege in life, that's like that self-actualization, that transcendence level, and oh, you have to have all these things to actually reach there. And I think you should just totally reject that. I think meaning is for everyone, that people who don't want you to have meaning are just trying to control you. Like, they don't want you to fully express yourself because they can't predict you as well. And everyone should be free to develop their own sense of purpose and meaning. Some people think that meaning in life, self-actualization, transcendence, that these are all privileges that only a few of us will have in life, but I think you should just reject that. I think that kind of argument is meant to control you so that you don't look, you don't bother trying to find a meaning, you don't bother trying to express yourself, because if you were to, it would make you less predictable. It would make you unfit to be a cog in someone else's machine. But I think meaning is for everybody. Finding meaning is continual questioning, where no meaning is no question at all. So there have been quite a few cultures who have a way of thinking about meaning and purpose. One cultural idea that I really like is called Ikigai. It's a Japanese term which roughly translates to reason for being. So what keeps you alive? What gets you up in the morning? What keeps you going? So to help you find meaning and coherence in your life, I definitely recommend trying this. And there's an interesting diagram that helps to lay out and make sense of the actions that people take in your life. But really, this boils down to 4 questions. What do you love to do? What are you good at? What does the world need? And what can you be paid for? So if you can find the center, the overlapping center of all 4 of those questions, then that would be your Ikigai. But I hope you're excited to answer these questions. I hope you go searching, and if you don't have a satisfactory answer, then your goal is to explore and learn more until you can. Your Ikigai can grow and change over time because your answers can change over time. Sometimes it can seem like a lot, like how are you supposed to know what the world needs right now? But it's often about also looking in your immediate center, your community. What do they need? I love this quote. Jumping from failure to failure with undiminished enthusiasm is the big secret to success. Something else about work is there are 3 things that people seem to really enjoy and make them love their work, which is AMP, autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And this was described by Dan Pink in his book Drive, which I didn't read, by the way. But it made a lot of sense to me, because autonomy is to choose how you go about your work. So arranging your schedule to match your personal energy. Mastery is a path to a state of flow, constantly improving your craft. And purpose is to find meaning in your activity beyond yourself. These are the intrinsic motivators which propel us greater and more sustainably than external motivators like money. With autonomy, mastery, and purpose, you start to see how that meets some of the needs that are basic to human beings, like freedom and creativity and identity and understanding, all of these things. Returning to Jonathan Haidt's book, The Happiness Hypothesis, he says that happiness is often brought upon by things in between us. It's not really about maximizing happiness directly. When we try to be as happy as possible, when we measure our lives that way, it can cease to be a good measure. So often it's about our connection to others and how do we connect with people. And sometimes a good way to go about that is work. So just to give an example of something like this, I would say a personal physical fitness trainer. So, if you love to do it, if you're good at it, if the world needs it, they need to be healthier, and if you can be paid for it, then you can also have autonomy, where you set your schedule with your clients. You have mastery, because you can get better at this craft, better at training people, better at training yourself. And it can also be purposeful if you feel like this is important for you. And with personal training, you're meeting a lot of human needs, where you're helping people with some subsistence levels like health and safety, and you're helping them with protection. You also get to be creative, learn a lot, and have an identity around this. But something else is that you just find with working with people and providing a valuable skill, it just brings on a lot of happiness and love in your life through social connection. So loving yourself and others is very important, but how do you do that? Honestly, the information I'm about to share is so powerful, I'm a little hesitant because it can do as much harm as good. But full and healthy relationships are so critical to our well-being that I feel like I've got to give it out. I would say that there's 3 parts to relationships, and this is based on the work of social engineering. And, it's about trust, empathy, and rationality. And it's worth thinking about your past relationships and seeing if you had that with a person, right? Your most cherished relationships, did you have trust, empathy, and rationality? This goes back to the idea of the tripartite brain, which is that we have that lizard brain, the amygdala, we have the limbic brain, which is more emotional, we have the neocortex, which is more rational, and we're really connecting with another person on all 3 of those levels. So to trust someone, you would want to be able to accurately predict how they'll react to things. That person should have the ability to understand the emotional content of your experience. And you should trust the other person to be rational, to make appropriate choices given enough information. So do your best relationships have these characteristics? Learning to love yourself is much like building a relationship with another person. You should demonstrate your trustworthiness, you should display empathy for yourself, and be rational. So do you trust yourself? Do you keep your promises and commitments? Are you consistent in your behavior? To love yourself, invest in yourself. Make a commitment to your emotional health and follow up on it later. Then you'll build trust and empathy. Invest in your rationality. Take time to explore all your options. And I think you should just assume that your judgment with yourself and others is just a little bit off, like maybe 10% off. So, just give yourself a little slack for your failures. So if this is so clear, why is it so difficult to love ourselves? Well, it takes a lot of work, energy, and investment. Relationships themselves are highly complex. Forces outside of ourselves will eventually disrupt our bonds, but what we can do is just work hard to rebuild them or reinforce them. So I think it mostly comes down to Immanuel Kant's, rules for happiness. He said something to do, someone to love, something to hope for, and those are his rules for happiness. But thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I really hope you got something out of it. I would be really surprised if you knew everything on this list, but please comment down below if you think there's something that I should add generally or if there's something for others. I'll have about 9 to 10 more parts in this series, but it's going to cover what I would consider more of the objective meaning of life. So it's not really about peace and happiness. It's what I would say is the real thing. I'm only going to say this once right now in my series. If you could please like, comment, subscribe, and also if you could just share this with someone that you think would get a lot out of it, I would really appreciate it. It helps a lot. All these things extra help because I suspect that a lot of people are going to be following links off of my YouTube page, which messes up the algorithm a little bit. So yeah, huge help. Please and thank you. So if you find this answer satisfying, I would say also just stop now. You don't have to watch any of my future videos. I respect you so much for looking this far. So just thank you for watching, and may you be happy, may you be free from suffering. Thanks.